Chapter 231 Heaven Mending Stone, Nuwa Imperial Palace. Fellow Taoist? The white-robed Buddha's voice floated into Hanju's ears again. As he waited for his reply, he was a little puzzled. Was he not good enough? Hanju thought for a moment and still arrived in front of the white-robed Buddha. When the white-robed Buddha saw him come out, he couldn't help but smile and ask, "Recently, many geniuses have appeared in the Scarlet Cloud world. Even in the immortal world, they're not mediocre." Hanju asked curiously, "Why are you doing your best? Aren't you afraid of being questioned if you don't return to the Buddhist sect?" The white-robed Buddha frowned. "Fellow Taoist, don't you know the truth? The Heavenly Emperor asked me to help you. How can you not know? What I mean is, aren't you afraid that the Buddhists will take their anger out on you? It's fine. Finding the Supreme Buddha is already very difficult. It's very difficult to succeed without hundreds of years. I can delay for a longer time. The Buddha can't deduce matters about me. I have a supreme treasure on me. Then, aren't you afraid of being suspected? They already suspect me. What's there to be afraid of? He sent me here as a test, to begin with." Hanju looked at the white-robed Buddha's confident expression and couldn't help but be speechless. It was too ridiculous. If he were the heavenly Tao Buddha, he would definitely kill the white-robed Buddha. He had to be careful in the future. He had to prevent a traitor like the white-robed Buddha from appearing in his sect. Hanju thought silently and said, "You can arrange the matter of the prodigies." With the heavenly Tao token, he wasn't afraid of the white-robed Buddha's tricks. Under the heavenly Tao, he could monitor the white-robed Buddha at any time, even if he had a supreme treasure. The white-robed Buddha acted recklessly, he could kill him immediately. "Aren't you going to thank me for helping you?" The white-robed Buddha smiled teasingly. Hanju said angrily, "You speak as if you didn't gain anything. I'm allowing you to preach in the mortal world and increase your providence. This is already the greatest favor I can do for you." The white-robed Buddha was speechless because Hanju was right, that's all. Hanju disappeared after saying this. The white-robed Buddha shook his head and laughed. He turned around and left. Hanju didn't return to the connate cave abode directly. Instead, he came to the Fusang tree and lectured to the hidden sect disciples. After so many years, these disciples were at least at the tribulation transcendence realm. The spirit chi of the Cultivate diligently become immortal mountain was still the richest in the world. The tribulation transcendence realm, Zhou Mingyue had already made a name for himself. After Morong Chi, he became the new eldest disciple of the Jade Pure Sacred Sect. Taoist Nine Cauldrons was too embarrassed to rope Hanju in and could only target his grand disciple. It was worth mentioning that Taoist Nine Cauldrons' cultivation level had already reached the second level of the Tribulation Transcendence Realm and would not face the pain of having no lifespan. Half a year later, Hanju ended the lecture. Long Hao said, "Master, I want to learn the Heavenly Sword Tao." Ever since Tao Comprehension Sword had reached the second level of the Heavenly Sword Tao, her strength had increased greatly. Long Hao coveted that gorgeous sword technique. The Black Hell Chicken added, "I want to learn it, too." Hanju said, "This sword Tao is very difficult to learn. The leader of the Heavenly Court's literature immortals, Di Tai Bai, took 1,000 years to master it. This is already an outstanding performance. My potential is not bad," Long Hao said seriously. While the Black Hell Chicken was silent, Hanju thought for a moment and said, "Who else wants to learn? I'll teach you all." Sun Chang'an, Zhou Mingyue, and Golden Crow Ada raised their hands. Chu Shuren wasn't interested. Tu Linger wasn't good at the sword Tao, and the aptitude of the Golden Crow Xiao Air was limited. Hanju smiled and started to teach the first level of the Heavenly Sword Tao. Several days later, he came to the Earth Immortal Gourd Vine. The 7 gourds had already grown to the size of a mortal gourd. Hanju took out a small green jade bottle that contained the ancestral Magus blood essence and injected it into the Earth Immortal Gourd Vine. The Golden Crow Xiao Air asked curiously, "Master, what are you doing?" Hanju smiled and said, "Giving it some fertilizer." The others were still comprehending the sword Tao and did not come over. Tu Linger suddenly sensed something and opened her eyes to look at the green jade bottle in Hanju's hand. For some reason, her heart raced. What was that? Hanju stared at the earth immortal gourd vine and prayed silently, hoping that the fusion would succeed. This way, he could create 7 ancestral Magus Calabash brothers. Under his gaze, there was nothing unusual about the earth immortal gourd vine. Tea was fine as long as there were no abnormalities. He was just afraid the earth immortal gourd vine would be ruined. As Hanju was thinking, he suddenly felt something. He raised his right hand, and a red stone appeared in his hand. This was a mysterious stone that Xing Hongxian had given him a long time ago. It was said to have fallen from the sky, and there was a strange aura inside it. Until today, Hanju still couldn't see what this aura was. The red stone trembled violently, wanting to break free from his hand. Hanju hesitated for a moment but still chose to let go. The red stone quickly flew towards the earth immortal gourd vine and collided with it. Then, it condensed into a red gourd at a speed visible to the naked eye. Compared to the other earth immortal gourds, the red gourd was very small, but it was as red as blood and extremely eye-catching. The stone has become a gourd. Xiao Er exclaimed, attracting the attention of the others. Hanju ignored her and focused on the earth immortal gourd vine. After a while, still nothing had happened to the earth immortal gourd vine. Wow. 7 Calabash brothers became 8. Hanju found it strange. He turned to look at the disciples and said, "Pay more attention to these gourds. Let me know if there are any abnormalities." With that, he returned to the connate cave abode to continue cultivating. The disciples came to the earth immortal gourd vine to watch. There's really another gourd. Can these gourds transform? They should. Otherwise, Master would have long refined them into Dharma treasures. Master is kind. Tao comprehension sword is formed from grass. The ugly monk was also an ancient spiritual ginseng in his previous life. It's going to be lively again in the future. 20 years later. A line of words suddenly appeared in front of Hanju, who was cultivating, detected bearer of connate Providence, check its origin. Hanju frowned and prayed that it wasn't an enemy. Then, he chose to check. Earth immortal gourd spirit, first level of the body integration realm, formed by the earth immortal gourd vine. Contains the blood essence of the legendary ancestral Magus Di Jiang. After being nurtured by the Fusong tree for 1,000 years, it has given birth to consciousness. Its providence is extraordinary. X7, chaotic gourd spirit, first level of the soul formation realm. It is formed by the heaven mending stone. Contains the essence of the earth immortal gourd vine and the blood essence of the ancestral Magus Di Jiang. It has a strong foundation and is an unprecedented race of living beings. It is said that the heaven mending stone is a chaotic spirit stone found from the depths of chaos. This heaven mending stone fell from Nuwa Imperial Palace and is controlled by a mysterious force to approach the target. However, the heaven mending stone has already become a spirit. The providence of the Magus, reincarnation, Fusong, and other great providences have gathered and cut off the karma with the Nuwa Imperial Palace. Hanju was stunned. The 8 gourds had gained sentience. Hanju frowned. That red stone was actually a heaven-mending stone, and it came from the Nuwa Imperial Palace. The Nuwa Imperial Palace had targeted him. They deliberately threw the heaven-mending stone to Xing Hongxian. Since she couldn't use it, she could only hand it to Hanju. With Xing Hongxuan's help, Hanju naturally didn't suspect that the heaven-mending stone was a conspiracy. Gasp, not bad at all. Hanju was shocked. Tai Sutian has a favorable impression of you. Current favorability, 1 star. Chapter 232 Tai Sutian, Jie School. Hanju hurriedly checked his interpersonal relationships and found Tai Sutian. It was the portrait of a beautiful woman. Tai Sutian, cultivation unknown. A mysterious existence nurtured by the 33-layered heavens. Lives in Nuwa Imperial Palace all year round and listens to the sages preach. Under the orders of the sage, she threw the heaven-mending stone into the mortal world of the heavenly court to find a prodigy without a powerful background. Because you refined the heaven-mending stone into a living being and cancelled out its previous providence, Tai Sutian is interested in you. Current favorability, 1 star. Her cultivation level was unknown, so she was an immortal emperor at least. Hanju frowned. Sage, Wasn't Nuwa the sage of the Nuwa Imperial Palace? It seemed that the Chinese myths were all true. Perhaps Earth was just a corner of the universe. Hanju was a little nervous. The name Tai Sutian sounded very impressive. He wondered if the Heavenly Emperor could continue to protect him, should he ask? Hanju immediately took out the Heavenly Dao token and contacted Di Tai Bai. Di Tai Bai quickly connected with his divine sense and did not neglect him. What is it? Can I speak to His Majesty? As I said, His Majesty is busy every day. Unless it's something important, it's best not to disturb him. I have something private to ask. If it's a private matter, I'll help you resolve it. Hanju cursed silently. Di Tai Bai was really enthusiastic. I'm here. The Heavenly Emperor's voice suddenly sounded. Hanju was stunned. Di Tai Bai was also stunned. The two of them cursed in their hearts. Hanju, are you a stalker? Di Tai Bai, is he the son of the Heavenly Emperor? Di Tai Bai didn't dare to interfere and hurriedly severed his divine sense connection. Hanju chased Dao Comprehension's sword out first before contacting the Heavenly Emperor. Your Majesty, do you know about the Nuwa Palace? Hanju asked carefully. The Heavenly Emperor asked in surprise. Why? Hanju said, the inheritance I obtained is related to reincarnation. I have a certain understanding of fate. I picked up a stone and calculated that it came from above the 33 heavens. The Heavenly Emperor fell silent. Seeing that he didn't receive an immediate reply, Hanju's heart skipped a beat. Crap. Was his backing not enough? The Heavenly Emperor said. Could that stone be the heaven mending stone? Hanju asked curiously, what's the heaven mending stone? It's fine. Cultivate in peace. You're mine. Nuwa Palace will never target you. Nuwa Palace has never fought for fame or fortune. Your Majesty, it's best to be cautious. People change. Yes, I know. Do you have anything else, Tosk? Then, I won't disturb your Majesty. When you reach the perfected golden immortal realm, you can come to the heavenly court to find me. I'll think of a way to help you reach the Emperor realm. Thank you, your Majesty. Hanju cupped his fists and smiled, feeling disdainful. Humph. Trying to lure me into the sky, impossible. Looks like the Heavenly Emperor was also sent by the Heavenly Dao. You want to destroy my Dao heart. The outcome of the Divine General was still vivid in his mind. He looked majestic, but he was just working hard and was too tired all the time. He could repay the Heavenly Court, but there was no need to work like a donkey and risk his life. Hanju stood up and walked out of the cave abode towards the Fusong tree. The 8 gourds didn't seem to have changed. Hanju scanned with his divine sense and caught their weak soul fluctuations. Now that they had souls, they were spirits. Not bad. Not bad, Hanju said. The 8 gourds have become spirits. Take care of them. Everyone stood up and surrounded him. Hanju looked at the gourds for a while before returning. It was very difficult for the 8 gourds to transform in a short period of time. He still needed to wait for a while. To celebrate this matter, Hanju took out the Book of Misfortune and started cursing. At the same time, he checked his emails. Because of your curse, your enemy Heavenly Rage God has lost his Buddhist heart, and his inner demon has transformed him into a demonic Buddha. Your disciple Su Qi was attacked by a cultivator from the Sacred Dynasty and was imprisoned in the Luck Suppression Prison. Your good friend Zhou Fan slaughtered a cultivation family. His negative karma has increased greatly. Your grand disciple Feng Liang was attacked by a cultivator, X15033. Your good friend Ji Xianchen has comprehended a mystical power. His providence has increased greatly. Your good friend Zhang Guxing was attacked by the Divine Palace Immortal Emperor. Your Dao companion Xian Qingjun is listening to the Dao in the Jie school. Her cultivation has increased greatly. Unfortunately, the evil Wyrm king didn't have any interaction with Hanju. Hanju also didn't know how the evil Wyrm king was doing. It was fine to spend 5 days every 10 years cursing. Hanju thought silently, was very curious about Xian Qingjuan's opportunity. The Jie school was an enemy sect of the Heavenly Court. What would happen if they met her in the future? It was worth mentioning that Xian Qingjuan's cultivation had already reached the perfected Grand Unity Heaven Immortal Realm. This breakthrough speed was considered fast. After all, she had obtained an opportunity from the Jie school. After cursing for half a year, Hanju continued cultivating. No matter what, he couldn't mess up his cultivation rhythm. In a Taoist temple, wearing a Taoist robe, Xian Qingjun sat on a mat with several disciples of the Jie school. In front of them was a Taoist nun. The Taoist nun had an indifferent expression as she said, "After the lecture ends, all of you should cultivate well when you return. You're not allowed to leave the island." "Yes," the disciples replied in unison. Then, they stood up and bowed, preparing to leave. "Xian Qingjun, stay." Xian Qingjun sat down again. Her expression was calm as she waited for her master to speak. The Taoist nun said, "You have joined the Jie school for a period of time. Do you have a Tao companion?" Xian Qingjun replied, "I have a Tao companion in the mortal world. His potential is outstanding and he's the number one in the mortal world. He might have already ascended." Hearing this, the Taoist nun frowned slightly and said regretfully, "Then forget it. I still wanted to introduce you to a Tao companion. What a pity." Xian Qingjun smiled. A long time ago, the Jie school was defeated in the immeasurable calamity. Many disciples were imprisoned in the heavenly court. Prepare yourself. Before long, the Jie school will launch a surprise attack on the heavenly court, the Taoist nun continued. Xian Qingjun frowned. Can our Jie school defeat the heavenly court? She had been in the Jie school for some time. She felt that although they had some mighty figures, there were few disciples. The Taoist nun smiled and said, "You underestimate our Jie school. Even the heavenly emperor has to address our sect master respectfully as a senior. The island we're on is only one of the 100,000 islands of the Jie school. Most of the disciples are gathered on the Penglai Immortal Island." Xian Qingjun was enlightened and became even more curious about the Jie school. What kind of force was the Jie school? 30 years later, the 8 gourd spirits had already begun to speak, but they had yet to land and transform. The 7 earth immortal gourd spirits were named by Hanju as Han 1 to Han 7, while the chaotic gourd spirit was named Han 8. Names were simple and easy to recognize. The disciples were speechless, but they didn't dare to refute. The gourds didn't understand the meaning of their names, so they didn't mind. All these years, the cultivation levels of the 8 gourds had been increasing rapidly. They were absorbing immortal chi, not spirit chi. The weakest Han 8 had also stepped into the Mahayana realm not long ago. Their talent was stronger than Hanju's disciples. Compared to Long Hao and Chu Shurun, they were temporarily unable to compare. On this day, in the midst of cultivating, Hanju suddenly opened his eyes. He frowned and muttered, "This aura is..." At the same time, a huge crack appeared in the sky in the distant sea. Lightning interweaved and the crack was pitch black, like a netherworld abyss. Chapter 233 Reroll World, Divine Palaces Tian Bao. Hanju used the Heavenly Dao token to observe the crack in the sky. From the point of view of the Heavenly Dao, the world was a huge sealed space. Now, this sealed space was torn apart by a mysterious force. As a deity of the mortal world, Hanju instinctively felt a sense of danger, enemy attack. Hanju was about to take action when he saw the white-robed Buddha flash in front of the crack. The white-robed Buddha was surprised. He raised his hands and tried to use his dharmic powers to repair the crack in the sky. At this moment, a strong wind came from the crack, startling the white-robed Buddha into taking out the Tathagata Buddha staff. A terrifying figure slowly stepped out. He was 1,000 feet tall and wore a black robe with 9 dragons imprinted on it. He also wore a horn-bone crown and held a sinister long sickle. He smiled sinisterly as his gaze landed on the white-robed Buddha. "This world belongs to me." The white-robed Buddha frowned. After staying in the Scarlet Cloud world for so long, he had already preached and obtained countless believers. His providence was already connected to it. How could he allow others to trample on the Scarlet Cloud world? Without another word, the white-robed Buddha raised his staff and struck. Before the black-robed man could react, he was sent back into the crack in the sky. The white-robed Buddha also flew into the crack. Seeing this, Hanju was relieved. This fellow's existence is still necessary. Hanju thought silently and suddenly felt that white-robed Buddha was quite pleasing to the eye, now that the white-robed Buddha's providence was tied to the scarlet cloud world, and Hanju was its guardian deity. The two of them were basically tied together. The white-robed Buddha was still very strong. With him protecting the scarlet cloud world, Hanju could continue cultivating. Several days later, the white-robed Buddha had just returned from the crack in the sky. His killing intent had yet to dissipate. He turned around and used his dermic powers to repair the crack in the sky. After more than 10 days, it was finally repaired. The white-robed Buddha heaved a sigh of relief and revealed a satisfied smile before suddenly realizing that something was wrong. The scarlet cloud world was in trouble. Why didn't Hanju take action after the world returned to normal? Hanju took out the heavenly Tao token and asked Di Tai Bai why this happened. Di Tai Bai replied, "There are also competitions in the mortal world. The heavenly court has rules with the divine palace, the Buddhist sect, and the demon court. The mortal worlds can compete freely with each other, and the immortal emperors are not allowed to interfere." Hanju frowned. When did we have such rules? Why didn't we have them before? In the past, the Scarlet Cloud world was too weak. No one cared. In other words, the heavenly court doesn't want to interfere? Don't worry. With Divine Lord Wude around and your faction, anyone below the Immortal Emperor realm will die. Fine. Hanju finally understood that the heavenly court was using him as a spear to suppress the experts of the other mortal worlds. Oh, wonder they helped the Scarlet Cloud world increase its providence ranking. This was the plot all along. The heavenly emperor had asked the white-robed Buddha to stay behind, probably for this matter. Hanju sighed in his head. It seemed that he couldn't even slack off. The heavenly court had nurtured him for so long. It was time for him to repay them. Hanju could only accept it and couldn't refuse. He was still fine now. At the very least, with the white-robed Buddha and Divine Lord Wude around, there was no need for him to take action for the time being. Hanju held the heavenly Tao token and probed with his divine sense, preparing to change the name of the world. Qi Yunxian was already dead. Now, Hanju still had to shoulder the karma for the Scarlet Cloud world. In that case, it was better to completely turn it into his own world. What should I call you? A question mark appeared above Hanju's mind. Why not call it the Earth Immortal World? No. This name was stained with great karma. Hanju thought for a moment and changed the name of the Scarlet Cloud world to the Reroll world. After all, he had started from rerolling providences. I'll change it if I find it unpleasant in the future. It was just like changing his online name. Hanju smiled in satisfaction. Then, he put down the heavenly Tao token and started cultivating. Next, he had to try his best to break through to the perfected reincarnation golden immortal realm. He had to become an immortal emperor as soon as possible. Hanju felt that the immortal emperor was the foundation of the immortal world. Without becoming an immortal emperor, there was no way to play. 40 years later, Hanju had yet to break through. He took out the Book of Misfortune and cursed the enemies. In the past few years, 3 other invasions had occurred, but they were all stopped by the white-robed Buddha. The white-robed Buddha was also a little tired, so he spread the news that this world was targeted by other worlds and hoped that the geniuses would be well prepared. Instantly, the top cultivators felt a sense of danger. The various holy lands began to recruit disciples to increase reroll worlds' overall strength. Hanju learned all of this through the heavenly Tao token. He was very satisfied. The white-robed Buddha was truly a qualified tool. Of course, this fellow definitely had his own ambitions, but Hanju did not care. His main mission was to cultivate, not govern the mortal world. After cursing for a few months, Hanju continued cultivating. A few days later, Tao Comprehension Sword suddenly said, something happened to Li Yao. Hanju didn't even open his eyes as he asked, what is it? She was caught. Hearing this, Hanju sent his divine sense into the 9 heavens galaxy water. Li Yao was locked in a jade bottle. It was dark all around, and she was stepping on the water. She was using her dermic powers with all her might to rush out, but there were clearly powerful restrictions around her that prevented her from succeeding. Damn it. Li Yao gritted her teeth. her eyes filled with anger, she didn't give up and continued to search for a way out. Hanju extended his divine sense and discovered that the person who caught Li Yao was a Grand Unity Golden Immortal. He was hurrying on his way. To Li Yao, who had just reached the Grand Unity True Immortal Realm, the Grand Unity Golden Immortal was like an immortal god that couldn't be defeated. Little girl, stop struggling. Once you're targeted by me, you won't be able to escape. A sinister laugh entered the bottle, causing Li Yao to frown. Who? The sinister voice suddenly shouted warily, why don't you show yourself? Hearing this, Li Yao was confused. Who was this damned fellow talking to? Wait, could it be Senior? Li Yao was pleasantly surprised. It was normal for Hanju's divine sense to be captured by the other party. After all, they were at the same realm. Hanju had to say, fellow Taoist, give me face and let her live. The sinister voice snorted. Who are you? Tell me your name. Hanju said, Divine Palace, Yutionbo. Yutionbo? Impossible. Do you think I'm stupid? If you're Yutionbo, why would you waste your breath? I'm in the Divine Palace. It's not convenient for me to attack. If I can avoid making enemies, I'll try my best not to. So what if it's the Divine Palace? I have the Demon Court behind me. You want to save her? Then come personally. Hanju was secretly furious. How arrogant. What? Are you afraid? You're only a golden immortal, yet you dare to pretend to be a mighty figure. What a joke. I'm definitely taking this girl. Even the Heavenly Emperor can't snatch her from me. The sinister voice sounded again. Hanju couldn't take it anymore. What a pretentious prick. Hanju couldn't be bothered to reply. Instead, he sent a voice transmission to Li Yao. I'll teach you a mystical power. You can start learning it now. Li Yao didn't understand and felt that it was impressive. She hurriedly meditated and listened to Hanju's voice transmission seriously. TSK, that's right. Cultivate in peace. The higher your cultivation level, the more useful you are to me. You will have a future if you follow me. As for that person just now, you saw that he doesn't even dare to argue with me. The sinister voice smiled. Li Yao had already entered a meditative state and did not answer him. Hanju didn't answer, just you wait, when I appear in front of you, don't kneel down and beg for mercy. Chapter 234 Sea-Shaking Elephant Saint, Gourd Spirits Descend. The sea-shaking elephant saint was in a good mood. It was rare for him to encounter a beautiful woman with outstanding potential and no background. Was a great demon saint of the demon court with remarkable abilities. His true form was a savage elephant who had once trampled on an ocean. That was why he was called sea-shaking. He had a fat body and a mouth full of yellow teeth, leopard eyes, and a wide face. He wore a tiger skin robe and python scales black armor. He walked above the clouds with the wind beneath his feet, looking majestic. The sea-shaking elephant saint thought of Hanju's voice and couldn't help but sneer. Nobody dared to ask him to give him face. It had been many years since he had met such a ridiculous person. Dao Comprehension's sword was furious. Master, that fellow is too arrogant. I'm so angry. This was the first time she heard someone humiliate Hanju like this. Hanju ignored her and focused on teaching the invocation technique. Li Yao's potential was high, and her cultivation level had also increased. It wasn't difficult for her to learn the invocation technique. She was only practicing the summoning method. The truly complicated part was the teleportation technique that Hanju mastered. After he explained it once, Li Yao easily remembered it. She started to consolidate her memories and made hand seals. Hanju retracted his divine sense and looked at Dao Comprehension's sword. It's fine. He'll regret it soon. Dao Comprehension's sword asked curiously, were you teaching her a mystical power just now? You can kill that fellow by learning a mystical power now? That's right. Hanju returned to his bed and meditated. Dao Comprehension's sword was even more curious. What mystical power could make Li Yao rise up in a short period of time and kill that fellow? She waited expectantly. The next day, Liao cast it dozens of times before finally succeeding. A huge black vortex appeared behind her. She turned around and was secretly shocked. What mystical power is this? She had been very puzzled before, as this mystical power did not seem powerful. The reason why she cultivated it was that there was no better option available inside the connate cave abode. Hanju felt the call of the invocation technique and opened his eyes. I'll be back soon. With that said, he was sucked away by a black vortex and vanished. Dao Comprehension Sword was stunned. She subconsciously turned to look at the Nine Heavens Galaxy water. Indeed, Hanju walked out of the black vortex behind Liao. He wore the 9-5 Supreme Providence robe, 9-layered heaven trampling boots, Grand Imperial Phoenix Wings crown, and the giant spiritual wrist guard. His aura was oppressive. Coupled with his unparalleled appearance, Liao was stunned. She had imagined Hanju's appearance but didn't expect him to be so handsome. She thought that he was a ruddy old Taoist. Hanju took out the primordial judgment sword as the sea-shaking elephant saint's voice sounded. How can you appear in my Dharma treasure? His voice was filled with shock. Hanju's sudden appearance frightened him. Hanju scanned with his divine sense. The sea-shaking elephant saint was still on his way, and there were no other powerful enemies around. Now was the time. Hanju waved his sword and slashed. Sword intent erupted and directly shattered the bottle, shaking the sea-shaking elephant saint. He and Li Yao appeared in the air. Li Yao's beautiful eyes widened. Not only was she stunned by Hanju's appearance, but she was also shocked by his strength. So powerful. The sea-shaking elephant was sent flying by the explosion. He stabilized himself and looked at Hanju, his anger erupting instantly. How dare you? The sea-shaking elephant saint roared angrily. Its nose turned into an elephant's nose and rapidly expanded. It was like a mountain range, raising a terrifying hurricane. Hanju flashed in front of Li Yao and raised his sword to execute the first level of the heavenly sword Dao. Sword pierces heaven. The sword chi swept out and directly shattered the elephant trunk, causing a rain of blood to spray into the sky. Almost instantly, the sea-shaking elephant saint's body was sliced into two by the sword chi. Was only at the early stage Grand Unity Golden Immortal Realm. How could he block Hanju's sword chi? Even if he had a perfected Grand Unity Golden Immortal Realm cultivation, he would still be insta-killed when facing Hanju. Wait, the sea-shaking elephant saint shouted in horror. Hanju waved his sword and used 3 pure world cleansing, causing billions of sword shadows to hang in the sky. The scene was spectacular, causing Li Yao's eyes to widen. Sea-shaking elephant saint was so frightened that he immediately escaped with his essence soul and disappeared into the horizon. Hanju waved his sword, and billions of sword shadows attacked. Unparalleled might. In the blink of an eye, he caught up to the sea-shaking elephant saint and killed him. Hanju turned to look at Li Yao and said, "Hurry up and leave, lest his companions come." Li Yao came back to her senses and immediately flew in another direction. She turned around and saw that Hanju didn't follow her. Instead, he walked back to the black vortex that summoned him. Li Yao immediately understood that he was going back. Why didn't Senior bring me back directly? Li Yao thought doubtfully, was he testing her? But this made sense. It was truly embarrassing for her to be caught in this situation. Li Yao's face turned slightly red. She stopped looking behind and fled at full speed. On the other side, Hanju returned to the connate cave abode. He exhaled, too close. Fortunately, this fellow did not have the help of a mighty figure. Hanju was worried that an immortal emperor would attack. There were so many demons in the demon court. There were also many demon saints. It was impossible for every one of them to have an immortal emperor watching them. Immortal emperors were not nannies. They had their own matters to attend to. A master, you're so strong. Dao Comprehension Sword was extremely excited, and her face was flushed. Hanju said expressionlessly, "This is the result of years of hard work. I'll definitely cultivate harder in the future." Dao Comprehension Sword nodded and clenched her fists. "Don't spread this news." Understood. Hanju closed his eyes and continued cultivating. He no longer cared about Li Yao. He had already made a move. If Li Yao was caught again or killed, he wouldn't be able to do anything about it. He couldn't risk everything for her. "Don't disappoint me," Hanju thought silently. 5 years later, Hanju didn't receive any new hatred points, and Li Yao didn't encounter any more danger. This made him heave a sigh of relief. Indeed, not every enemy had a mighty figure protecting them. With Li Yao's current progress, she could quickly find the heavenly court. Through Li Yao, Hanju learned that the immortal world was far larger than he imagined. Most of the places were not controlled by the heavenly court. Despite being called above the 9 heavens, the heavenly court did not control the entire 9 heavens. With Li Yao's current cultivation realm, it wasn't difficult for her to join the heavenly court. She probably needed some time to meet Deities Bai. After all, Hanju's reputation in the heavenly court was very low. Hanju stopped thinking about it and continued cultivating. The reroll world had the white-robed Buddha leading the people, and the void was guarded by divine Lord Buddha. Hanju could cultivate in peace. Another 6 years passed. The 8 gourd spirits landed on the ground and directly transformed into 8 youths. Under the protection of the Tao field, they did not transcend the tribulation. Hanju had been waiting for this day. He immediately came out of seclusion to meet them. The 8 gourd spirits had already put on their clothes. They looked like octuplets. They could already speak in human language, so there was no obstacle in communication. After seeing Hanju appear, the 8 brothers immediately surrounded him and knelt in front of him excitedly. All these years, through the teachings of the hidden sect disciples, they naturally knew that Hanju was the one who created them. Not for him, they wouldn't be here today. They might have long been refined into Dharma treasures. Hanju swept his gaze and discovered that the 8 brothers had all reached the loose immortal realm. Not bad. Chapter 235 Complete Annihilation, The Unfathomable Hanju. From today onwards, all of you are to stay on the mountain and cultivate. Without my permission, you're not allowed to leave the mountain. Do you understand? Hanju looked down at the 8 kneeling brothers and smiled. His expression was kind, but his tone was very serious. The 8 brothers hurriedly promised not to leave the mountain. They had yet to realize how long this rule would last. They were excited and interested in everything. After transforming, Hanju walked to the Fusong tree and meditated. Then, he waved his hand to signal the 8 brothers to come over. The 8 brothers came over obediently, very curious about what he would say. The others understood that he wanted to teach them a cultivation technique. Hanju thought for a moment and decided to teach them the 6 paths of reincarnation technique. He was about to reach the end of this technique. His greatest reliance was not the 6 paths of reincarnation technique, nor was he afraid of being surpassed by the 8 brothers. Besides, he could teach them level by level. The other cultivation techniques of the Jade Pure Sacred Sect were also not suitable for them. The 8 brothers were unlike the others, who each had an immortal inheritance. Hanju wasn't worried that the Calabash brothers would betray him. He had already placed the 6 paths insignia on them before they were born. After spending a day imparting the 6 paths of reincarnation techniques cultivation technique to the 8 brothers, Hanju returned to his cave abode to continue cultivating. He looked forward to the 8 brothers' future. With their potential, they should be able to rise quickly. In the future, if the reroll world was in trouble, they could help. The 8 brothers' talent made others feel threatened, including Long. 40 years later, Hanju was already close to the perfected reincarnation golden immortal realm. One day, he opened his eyes and took out the Book of Misfortune to curse the enemies while checking his emails. Your good friend Ji Xianchen was attacked by Jie school cultivators and was severely injured. Your good friend Li Yao has joined the heavenly court. Your grand disciple Feng Liang was attacked by demons, X140234. Your grand disciple Morong Qi has achieved the providence of the war god. His cultivation has increased greatly. Your good friend Divine General was attacked by an immortal emperor, X17. Your good friend Heavenly Emperor was attacked by a mighty figure. Your Tao companion Xian Qingjun was attacked by a heavenly soldier, X3281. Your disciple Su Qi had his bad luck absorbed. His divinity has weakened. Hanju frowned. What was wrong with Su Qi? His bad luck was actually absorbed by someone. Hanju was very worried, but he didn't know where Su Qi was. He couldn't save him even if he wanted to. Why didn't this kid use the invocation technique? Could it be that the sacred dynasty had an immortal emperor? Hanju also noticed that the Jie school and the heavenly court had started fighting. Even Xian Qingjun joined. Hanju immediately took out the Heavenly Dao token and contacted Di Taibai. Soon, Di Taibai's divine sense arrived. Wait for me to find you. I'm busy fighting to the death. With that, he severed his divine sense connection. Hanju remained silent. So dangerous. Could it be that the Jie school was stronger than the demon court? Hanju immediately checked the strongest person around the reroll world and didn't find any enemies. Immediately after, he used the Heavenly Dao token to observe the world. The white-robed Buddha had already returned to seclusion, but the roots of the Chan school were deeply rooted in the world. Chan school, Jie school, and human school were all orthodox schools of the Dao sect, but their names were different. The Dao techniques of the Chan school had a long history in the mortal world. Many cultivators used their techniques as the foundation to create various cultivation techniques, spells, and mystical powers. In the past few years, the mortal world had welcomed an era of blooming flowers. The cultivation craze had also reached an unprecedented height. It had to be said that the white-robed Buddha was very capable. He had strengthened the reroll world alone. He had to think of a way to subdue him. Hanju thought silently, then, he stopped thinking about it. He put away the Heavenly Dao token and continued cultivating. Heavenly Court, Numinous Palace. The Heavenly Emperor sat on the throne expressionlessly. Following his gaze, the sky outside the hall was filled with battling figures. It was extremely chaotic. A figure transformed into a shadow and rushed into the Numinous Palace. It was a man in a golden Taoist robe. 3 swords floated behind him, their sheaths emitting a strong light and his sleeves fluttering in the wind. He was handsome and powerful. He stared at the Heavenly Emperor and said, "Heavenly Emperor, are we still going to continue this battle? Release the souls of my disciples and I'll lead the Jie school disciples to retreat." The Heavenly Emperor smiled gently and said, "Xianxinzi, do you really think that the few of you from the Jie school can shake the Heavenly Court?" Xianxinzi stroked his beard and said, "Our Jie school doesn't want to disturb the Heavenly Dao. We only want to save our disciples and cultivate in peace." The Heavenly Emperor said, "It's impossible for those Jie school disciples to be released. That was their mistake in the immeasurable calamity. This is the punishment of the Heavenly Dao. Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't go against the heavens." Xianxinzi's eyes narrowed. He raised his right hand, and the 3 swords behind him quickly split into dozens of sword shadows that bloomed like flowers. At this moment, 4 pillars of light descended from the top of the Numinous Palace, surrounding him. A terrifying aura enveloped the hall. Xianxinzi was moved and said in a low voice, "For extreme emperors." "Heavenly Emperor, were you waiting for me on purpose?" The Heavenly Emperor said calmly, "Since the Jie school has planted spies in the Heavenly Court, why can't I arrange spies in the Jie school? For extreme emperors, I invite you to kill this person. Seal his soul in the divine pillar of the Numinous Palace, to never be released again." The Heavenly Emperor's tone became extremely domineering and unquestionable. The 4 extreme emperors shouted in unison from the pillars of light, "Kill!" Boom. 4 years later, Hanju was cultivating when he suddenly sensed an aura. He raised an eyebrow. It was Xian Qingjun. Why had she descended into the mortal world? Wait, how could she bypass Divine Lord Wudi? Xian Qingjun was meditating in a forest near the Jade Pure Sacred Sect, absorbing the immortal qi from the Cultivate, diligently become a mortal mountain to heal her injuries. Hanju appeared in front of her. Xian Qingjun opened her eyes and asked in surprise, "Grand Unity True Immortal?" This kid, she had cultivated with all her might in the immortal world and obtained all sorts of opportunities. She had barely broken through to the Grand Unity True Immortal Realm not long ago, but Hanju had already. Hanju noticed her injuries and couldn't help but raise his hand to heal her head using his dermic powers. Xian Qingjun's eyes widened. Such dermic powers, Hanju's dermic powers were unfathomable. She actually felt that she was facing her master in the Jie school. Xian Qingjun was deeply shocked. As Hanju treated her, he asked, "Why did you come down?" Xian Qingjun sighed. "I used a special method to escape. I think only the mortal world is safe now. I joined a sect, and it actually wanted to attack the Heavenly Court. I was forced to join, but all of us were wiped out. complete annihilation. Hanju raised his eyebrows. Was the heavenly court that impressive? Why was it so difficult to defeat the demon court? Then, could it be that the Jie school was no longer as powerful as it was during the divine investiture era? The previous battle showed me the power of immortals. No wonder the heavenly court can control the heavenly rules. Xian Qingjun was very depressed. It wasn't easy for her to join a powerful sect. However, before long, it was defeated. Although the Jie school wasn't destroyed, the people they sent were all suppressed, including her master's lineage. Now, she had nowhere to go and had to be careful of the heavenly court's pursuit. Hanju said, "It's fine. I can protect you. But how did you escape from the immortals outside?" He had to ask. This was to prevent enemies from sneaking in the future. Chapter 236 Perfected Reincarnation Golden Immortal Realm, Grand Desolate Sacred Dynasty. Facing Hanju's question, Xian Qingjun hesitated for a moment but still told him the truth. It turned out that she also had a heavenly Dao stone that could deceive the heavenly secrets. She had previously obtained a fortuitous encounter in the immortal world and learned a powerful mystical power that allowed her to travel through space. It was similar to the reincarnation mystical power that Hanju had used to jump into the netherworld. Previously, she had relied on this mystical power to accidentally enter the Jie school's territory. "You've joined the heavenly court?" Xian Qingjun asked, interrupting his thoughts. Hanju said, "I'm the guardian deity in charge of this mortal world now. Come with me into the mountain to recuperate." After all, Xian Qingjun was his first Dao companion. She had taken care of Hanju before. Xian Qingjun nodded. She had wanted to enter the mountain earlier, but the Dao field had isolated her divine sense. She thought that the mountain had changed owners, so she didn't dare to enter it rashly. Hanju brought Xian Qingjun back to the Cultivate diligently become immortal mountain and let her recuperate in his cave abode. Xinghongxian, Fairy Shishen, and Changyuer had gone out to train decades ago and had yet to return. However, Hanju couldn't let Xian Qingjun stay in their cave abode. Dao Comprehension Sword became vigilant when she saw Xian Qingjun, another woman, to be brought in by Hanju. Their relationship was definitely not simple. Hanju introduced them to each other. Xian Qingjun nodded to Dao Comprehension Sword and meditated in a corner to heal her injuries. The other disciples were very curious about her identity. Xian Qingjun looked calm, but she was shocked. The immortal Qi on this mountain was not inferior to the immortal islands of the Jie school. Most importantly, the demons and disciples that Hanju nurtured also grew rapidly. She even caught the aura of immortals. There was more than one. Hanju became mysterious in her eyes. She suddenly realized that she never understood him. She didn't know how talented Hanju was. It had only been 2,000 years, but he had already reached the grand unity true immortal realm. Such talent was considered outstanding in the Jie school. Hanju originally thought that Xian Qingjun would join the hidden sect from now on. However, 3 years later, after Xian Qingjun recovered, she wanted to leave. "I have ample immortal qi here. You can cultivate in peace," Hanju said. Xian Qingjun shook her head and smiled. "I'm not as talented as you. Cultivating alone is not enough. It's very easy to become lazy and complacent." These words represented the intentions of Xinghongxian and the others. They all had Hanju's potential, who would be willing to go out and experience life and death. Hanju was speechless. Even if he invited Xian Qingjun to join the heavenly court, she was unwilling. She said that she had killed many heavenly soldiers and that entering the heavenly court was asking for trouble. In the end, Hanju didn't force her to stay. Before Xian Qingjun left, he taught her the invocation technique, saying that she could only use it at critical moments. It took Xian Qingjun half a month to completely master the invocation technique before she left. Hanju didn't send her off. Xian Qingjun directly jumped out of the realm and didn't bump into Divine Lord Wu De. After Xian Qingjun left, Hanju took out the Book of Misfortune and contacted Di Taibai. "Haha, why are you looking for me?" Di Taibai asked with a smile. Hanju said, "You seem to be in a good mood?" "Of course. Not long ago, the Jie school attacked and was wiped out by us. The heavenly court's prestige in the immortal world has increased greatly. How can I not be happy? Congratulations. Can you help me investigate someone? His name is Su Chi, and he's my disciple. Su Chi? That jinx? Detaibai's tone was strange. Hanju asked in surprise, what jinx? Indeed, the Heavenly Court already knew Su Chi's identity, but they didn't take the initiative to recruit him. This meant that there was a special reason why Su Chi had left the Heavenly Court to descend into the mortal world. Detaibai said, your disciple Su Chi was originally the jinx of the Heavenly Court. His bad luck was too strong and always affected other immortals. His Majesty, the Heavenly Emperor, had no choice but to expel him to the mortal world. He wanted to use the 10,000 reincarnations to wash away his negative karma. Speaking of which, the jinx is also from the Jie school. A long time ago, he was born from the negative karma of the world. Due to the rejection of the heavenly Tao, it was difficult for him to become an immortal emperor. He doesn't have good relationships with people in the Jie school either. If not for the fact that the Jie school doesn't discriminate, he would probably be expelled by the myriad worlds. Hanju's expression was strange. Was Su Chi so miserable in his previous life? Detaibai continued, below the immortal emperor realm, it's very easy to be harmed by the jinx. As for immortal emperors, they look down on his Providence even more. You don't have to worry about him. No one is willing to inherit the vast negative karma for the sake of killing him. It's even more impossible for ignorant people to kill him. Since you want to find him, I'll let the two clairvoyants check around. Hanju thanked him hurriedly. No matter what, Su Chi was his disciple and had helped him deal with two great enemies. He couldn't leave him behind. Hanju asked, in other words, peace has returned to the Heavenly Court? Yes, we won't encounter any trouble for the time being. The Jie school has been suppressed, and the demon court has been frightened until it's much more obedient. 50 years later, the Heavenly Court will hold an immortal banquet. Are you coming? I won't go. I didn't attack the Jie school either. I'll be embarrassed to go. It has nothing to do with the Jie school. It's to celebrate His Highness the Crown Prince becoming a disciple of a sage. Sage? Yes, that's an existence that's as high as the heavenly Tao. They rarely appear throughout the eras. Only when the immeasurable calamity appears will they show up in the myriad worlds. Congratulations to His Highness. I think I should forget it. I won't be used to it even if I go. Hee hee. After severing the connection with his divine sense, Hanju continued cultivating. In the blink of an eye, another 30 years passed. Hanju finally reached the perfected reincarnation golden immortal realm. He almost cried in joy. In his excitement, he took out the book of misfortune and blessed all the enemies. Everyone was given an additional day and were cursed for 6 days each. Although hundreds of years of lifespan had been deducted, Hanju felt that they were worth it. Hanju cursed as he checked his emails regularly. Your grand disciple Feng Liang devoured the remnant soul of a mighty figure. His cultivation has increased greatly. Your good friend Zhou Fan was attacked by your good friend Mo Fuzhou. Both of them were severely injured. Your Dao companion Xian Qingjun has obtained the true teachings of the Jie school. Your disciple Su Chi spread bad luck. The providence of the grand desolate sacred dynasty has decreased. Your good friend Ji Xianxian was attacked by demons, X340032. Your good friend Jiang Yi was attacked by an immortal emperor. Your good friend Di Hongye has comprehended the true meaning of time. His cultivation has increased greatly. Everyone's journey was smooth. Hanju finally knew who the sacred dynasty that captured Su Chi was previously. Detaibai didn't find out, so Hanju could only give up. He wondered if he could directly curse a whole faction. Hanju decided to give it a try. In the future, the Grand Desolate Sacred Dynasty would also join the curse list. In addition, Zhou Fan and Mo Fuzhou fought, which surprised him. The two of them were truly deeply connected, having gone through love and hatred. They had walked hand in hand all the way until today and even fought each other. They were truly full of brotherly affection. Hanju also noticed that Xian Qingjun had returned to the Jie school. From the looks of it, the Jie school was indeed suitable for her. After the battle decades ago, the GS school shouldn't cause trouble again. It was one of the 3 major schools of the Tao sect. Even if it was desolate, no one dared to suppress it. This moment, a voice sounded in Han Ju's mind. Master, I'm in trouble. The voice came from the reincarnation avatar guarding the Sword Dao River, Liu Bei. His tone was filled with helplessness. Chapter 237 Perfect Immortal Emperor, Story of Reincarnation. Han Ju could communicate with the reincarnation avatar. After all, this avatar was created by him. He could even sense what the reincarnation avatar was thinking, but the latter couldn't sense his thoughts. The reincarnation avatar, Liu Bei, began to talk about the troubles during this period. A prodigy of the Sword Dao discovered Liu Bei and felt that he had an impressive identity, so he tried to strike up a conversation with him. In the beginning, Liu Bei could still tolerate it, but as time passed, he could not. Therefore, he had scolded that genius of the Sword Dao, but in the end, he had offended the guy. The other party had threatened to make him regret it. Liu Bei had inherited Han Ju's cautious personality. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to handle it, so he contacted his main body. Han Ju was speechless. Wasn't this basically himself? However, he wasn't so arrogant and dared not to say such harsh words. Han Ju thought, call me when he appears next time. All right. Liu Bei still sounded nervous, was afraid that the other party had a powerful background. Han Ju began to cultivate the 6 paths of reincarnation technique and sought the method to become an immortal emperor. When he reached the perfected reincarnation golden immortal realm, a new cultivation technique appeared in his mind. It was extremely vast and unfathomable. It involved many paths, such as Providence, Heaven and Earth, Heavenly Tao, 5 elements, Yin and Yang, Fate, and so on. Immortal emperors didn't cultivate only one Tao. Jiang Yi had become an immortal emperor of the Sword Tao, but he had said that the Sword Tao was his weakest Tao. Cultivation was so difficult. It was unlike fantasy stories. Geniuses could always temper their bodies endlessly. Even if they didn't understand other aspects, they could still forcefully reach the strongest realm. Cultivation meant cultivating the Tao and the heart. The legendary 12 ancestral magi had powerful bodies and no essence soul. They had inherited the orthodox lineage of Pengdu. Several months later, Han Ju finally finished reviewing the 6 paths of reincarnation technique. Now, he couldn't reach the immortal emperor realm just by meditating. Han Ju opened his eyes. Providence. There were 3 paths to reach the emperor realm. The first was Providence. Using great providence to obtain the recognition of the heavenly Tao and stepping into the emperor realm. Such immortal emperors were the weakest. The second was the great Tao. By relying on the great Tao, he could use his comprehension of the great Tao to transform his soul. The third was to combine the great Tao and providence. Such immortal emperors were the strongest. They had both powerful strength and great providence to protect them. Han Ju himself had the great Tao of life and death, but his providence might not be strong enough. Since he wanted to become an immortal emperor, he had to be the strongest kind. Detected that you are facing the choice of attaining the emperor realm. You have the following choices. 1. Providence Immortal Emperor. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a supreme treasure, and a mystical power inheritance. 2. Great Tao Immortal Emperor. You can obtain 2 great Tao fragments and a supreme treasure. 3. Perfect Immortal Emperor. You can obtain 3 great Tao fragments, a heavenly Tao spirit stone, and a mystical power inheritance. This choice couldn't be made immediately. It would only be completed automatically after reaching it. Han Ju fell silent. How could he obtain great providence? One was to kill the enemy and seize their providence. This was why the geniuses would trample on each other. Second, with the reroll world as the foundation, as the heavenly Tao got stronger, his providence would rise accordingly. This was also the reason why the white-robed Buddha worked so hard. Han Ju felt that he still had to rely on the reroll world. Although he was a deity of the mortal world, Han Ju's providence was not tied to the reroll world. Instead, the white-robed Buddha had already fused with the providence of the world. Han Ju immediately took out the heavenly Tao token and contacted deities Bide. On second thought, something was wrong. Deities Bide wasn't an immortal emperor. If he knew, wouldn't he have long become one? Han Ju chased Tao Comprehension Sword out of the cave abode and asked, is the Heavenly Emperor here? After a while, the Heavenly Emperor's voice sounded, "What is it?" Hanju asked with a strange expression, "You've been staring at me all the time?" "Humph, if you didn't call my name, would I have paid attention to you?" The Heavenly Emperor snorted. He was the Heavenly Emperor, the leader of the Heavenly Court. How could he have the time to stare at him? Hanju couldn't help but tense up. The Heavenly Emperor could sense it just by calling out to him. Fortunately, he didn't speak ill of him behind his back. "I want to ask how to fuse with the Providence of the mortal world and strengthen it," Hanju asked. The Heavenly Emperor's voice sounded, "Oh. You're about to achieve the Immortal Emperor realm?" Hanju hesitated for a moment and then nodded slowly. In front of the Heavenly Emperor, he felt like he had been seen through. "The karma between you and the Scarlet Cloud, no, reroll world, is too little. You have to enter the mortal world." "Enter the mortal world?" Hanju said in surprise. "You mean to travel the world and interact with people?" The Heavenly Emperor teased, "Didn't you obtain the reincarnation inheritance? Why don't you reincarnate as your trial?" Reincarnation? Hanju fell silent. Reincarnation doesn't mean death. You can hide your body in the depths of your soul. When your mortal body dies of old age, you can regain consciousness. Even if someone wants to kill your mortal body, you will sense it, the Heavenly Emperor explained. Hanju felt that it was feasible. It would only take a few decades in the mortal world. It was equivalent to entering seclusion, and no wonder so many powerful people reincarnated. "Thank you for your guidance, Your Majesty." Hanju thanked him. The Heavenly Emperor didn't reply and the communication ended. Hanju began to comprehend the great Tao of life and death. After he reached his limits, he would reincarnate and train. Beside a large river, Mo Fuzhou and Zhou Fan sat on the grass. Facing the river, they were both thinking about something. Zhou Fan came back to his senses and asked, "Have you thought about it?" Mo Fuzhou said leisurely, "Go." Fang Liang is Brother Han's grand disciple. We've seen him in the mortal world before. Since we heard that he's in trouble, how can we ignore it? Zhou Fan snorted. This kid's providence is too strong. It's said that he just killed dozens of heaven immortals not long ago. We might not be his match even if we cooperate. Mo Fuzhou smiled and said, "We're not bad either." With that, he stood up and said, "Since you've decided, let's go." Zhou Fan nodded. The two of them flew in the same direction and vanished at the end of the river in the blink of an eye. On the other side, Heavenly Court, in a stone pavilion. Really? Murong Qi slapped the table and stood up angrily. In front of him sat Di Tai Bai. Di Tai Bai said helplessly, "That kid Fang Liang is being controlled by a family under the Divine Palace. It's said that he's delirious and has gone mad. If you want to save him, you'll have to face several Grand Unity Mystic Immortals. With your current strength, I'm afraid," Murong Qi frowned and said, "the Heavenly Court can't do anything? Fang Liang is also a Heavenly General. The Divine Palace is on good terms with the Heavenly Court now. We can't save him for the time being. Let's wait a little longer. That family won't take Fang Liang's life for the time being. They're still counting on him to make a comeback. Does my Grandmaster know about this?" "No." "Do you want me to tell him?" "No need. I'll save my junior brother. Don't trouble Grandmaster." Murong Qi turned around and left. Di Tai Bai hurriedly called out to him, "You don't have the strength of your previous life now." Murong Qi waved his hand and said, "Even if I don't, killing mystic immortals is nothing difficult." Looking in the direction he had vanished, Di Tai Bai frowned. Could it be that this fellow has already recovered his cultivation from his previous life? Impossible. He died in his previous life. Could it be that he had a huge fortuitous encounter in the Heaven Punishment Divine region? Di Tai Bai couldn't understand. He also yearned to reach the Immortal Emperor realm. However, due to his limited potential, he had been stuck at the perfected Grand Unity Golden Immortal Realm for a long time. So many years had passed. Chapter 238 Comprehending the Great Tao, Beaten to Death. 10 years later, Hanju raised his sword Tao mystical powers to the limit. In the simulation trial, other than the Heavenly Emperor, everyone else was instantly killed. Hanju's cultivation had already reached the limit and could no longer be strengthened. Therefore, he decided to start comprehending the great Tao of life and death next. As for reincarnation and fusing the Providence, Hanju was still conflicted. What if the enemies took the opportunity to mess with him during his reincarnation? If it was him, after knowing that his invincible enemy had reincarnated, he would definitely think of a way to completely kill him and prevent future trouble. Hanju placed the reincarnation plan last on the list. He could avoid reincarnation, he would never do it. Half a year later, he was pleasantly surprised to discover that comprehending the great Tao of life and death could allow his cultivation level to continue growing stronger. That was quite impressive. Was this the great Tao? Hanju was extremely excited and continued to comprehend the great Tao of life and death. The great Tao of life and death controlled life and death. The 6 paths of reincarnation were created with the great Tao of life and death as the foundation. There was no life and death. How could there be reincarnation? During the comprehension process, Hanju's essence soul entered the great Tao of life and death. He witnessed the cycle of life and death of countless people. There were all kinds of forms in life. At first, his emotions would fluctuate. But after watching too much, his heart became numb. Numbness wasn't the ultimate success. He had to transcend numbness, understand life and death, believe in life and death, control life and death, and not be controlled by life and death. In the connate cave abode, Tao Comprehension's sword blinked at him. There were 2 visible auras around Hanju. One was black and the other was white. His hair alternated between them. It was extremely strange. Although Tao Comprehension's sword was filled with doubts, she didn't dare to disturb Hanju. Half a year later, deities came to visit. Hanju was in a state of Tao comprehension and didn't hear his voice. Tao Comprehension's sword had no choice but to go out to welcome him. Deities stood at the edge of the cliff. Beside him was a woman in white. It was Li Yao. The others had already seen deities. Thus, they were curious about the white-robed woman beside him. What a beautiful woman! She was prettier than Tu Linger, Xinghongxian, and Changyuer. Only Tao Comprehension's sword could compare. This woman in white was Li Yao. Her expression was indifferent, making everyone think of Hanju. Her temperament was too similar to his, especially that wary gaze. Li Yao looked indifferent, but she was actually extremely nervous. Ever since she was saved by Hanju, she had an indescribable feeling towards him. After living for so long, she only knew how to cultivate and had never fallen in love. However, Hanju's appearance that day was really stunning, causing her to remember it clearly. She had been to so many worlds, even the immortal world and the heavenly court, but she had never met a man more handsome than Hanju. Was good-looking and powerful. He even saved her. Even if her heart was made of stone, it still melted. However, after arriving at the Cultivate diligently become Immortal Mountain, she subconsciously became vigilant. What if the one on this mountain was not the Hanju she knew? What if he had ill intentions? Seeing Tao Comprehension's sword walk out of the connate cave abode, she became even more nervous. Could it be that Hanju liked Tao Comprehension's sword's eyes lit up when she saw Li Yao. She immediately walked over and carefully sized her up. Li Yao was frightened and subconsciously retreated. If she took another step back, she would fall off the cliff. Of course, with her cultivation level, that was impossible. Tao Comprehension's sword looked at deities and said, "Master is comprehending the Tao. He can't come out for the time being." This woman claims to know Hanju. He asked her to come, right? Deities asked originally. Li Yao's immortal position was not enough to attract his attention, but when she mentioned Hanju, he had to be serious. Li Yao was very mysterious and was ambiguous about the past. If deities had not guessed that she had ascended from the mortal world, he would have directly captured her. Yes, it's true. I thank Great Immortal on Master's behalf. Deities smiled and nodded before disappearing. Tao Comprehension's sword looked at Li Yao and smiled. I've watched you with Master before. I've seen all your experiences over the years. You're really impressive. She began to talk non-stop, causing Li Yao to frown. She wasn't proud. Instead, she felt insecure. Anyone would feel uncomfortable being spied on. If it was Hanju, he would probably want to kill the other party. Dao Comprehension Sword could tell that she wasn't in a good mood, so she arranged for her to sit in front of the fusong tree and let her cultivate first. The black hell chicken asked curiously, "What's her relationship with Master?" Hanju spent most of his time cultivating, but he would occasionally go out. Dao Comprehension Sword snorted. "What does it have to do with you? Are you at the loose Immortal Realm yet?" The black hell chicken glared at her, not daring to reply. Although the others were curious, they did not approach. Li Yao's expression was too cold, as if she did not want anyone to approach her. The disciples of the hidden sect were all geniuses, so they were naturally not too humble. In the blink of an eye, another 10 years passed. Hanju woke up in realization. The great Tao of life and death really fascinated him. It was like a dream. He only felt that several days had passed. Hanju's cultivation level had increased greatly, surpassing decades of bitter cultivation. He was very satisfied with this. He took out the Book of Misfortune and did his usual missions. Dao Comprehension Sword suddenly said, "Li Yao is here." Hanju raised his eyebrows. He scanned with his divine sense and discovered that Li Yao was cultivating outside. "Okay, let her continue cultivating," Hanju replied. Li Yao's cultivation level had already reached the early stage Grand Unity True Immortal Realm. Back then, when he first saw her, she was still immortal. Dao Comprehension Sword asked in surprise, "You don't want to see her?" "What she wants is a place for cultivation. It's fine as long as I don't disturb her." "I don't need her to do anything for the time being," Hanju replied. He hoped that Li Yao would treat this place as her home. This way, when the Cultivate diligently become Immortal Mountain encountered danger, it would also increase his combat strength. However, this woman's personality was too similar to his. He encountered a problem. His first thought was to run. Li Yao was most likely the same. Hanju continued cursing and checked his emails. "Your grand disciple Feng Liang was attacked by a cultivator. X20943. Your good friend Ji Xianchen received guidance from a mighty figure and learned a mystical power. Your grand disciple Feng Liang was attacked by demons. X142800. Your good friend Zhou Fan was attacked by your grand disciple Feng Liang and was severely injured. Your good friend Imo Fuzhou was attacked by your grand disciple Feng Liang and was severely injured. Your disciple Yang Tiandong was attacked by a righteous cultivator and was killed. His soul fell into the cycle of reincarnation. Your good friend Divine General was cursed." Hanju suddenly frowned, not to mention why Feng Liang attacked Zhou Fan and Morong Qi. Why was Yang Tiandong dead? Hanju immediately captured Yang Tiandong's soul and discovered that he was already in the netherworld. Immediately sent his essence soul into the netherworld to find him. At this moment, Yang Tiandong was already lining up in front of the Bridge of Forgetfulness. He was in a daze. Similar to the ghosts in front and behind, Hanju sucked Yang Tiandong towards him. "What happened?" Hanju asked in a low voice. The moment Yang Tiandong saw him, he immediately lowered his head in shame and gritted his teeth. "Master, I've let you down." He suddenly knelt. Hanju frowned and asked, "What is it?" Yang Tiandong replied with a trembling voice, I took the initiative to spar with someone and was beaten to death. I've embarrassed you." Chapter 239 Comprehending the Physique, Ancestral Recovery Array. After hearing Yang Tiandong's words, Hanju took a deep breath. He was angry, but he felt even more speechless. Yang Tiandong didn't cry out in injustice or anger, which meant that he was in the wrong. Hanju asked, "Why did you want to spar with someone?" Yang Tiandong said awkwardly, "My subordinate said that he's the strongest among the demons. I didn't believe, why kill when sparring? He said that he doesn't spar and only kills enemies. I said that we should just fight like enemies." Hanju was convinced. In that case, it wasn't the other party's fault. It was Yang Tiandong who had provoked him. Yang Tiandong wished that there was a hole in the ground for him to hide in. He didn't dare to look at his master. Hanju said, "Then, go reincarnate and cultivate well in your next life." With that, he disappeared. He couldn't be bothered to comfort Yang Tiandong. However, before leaving, he still sent a message to Mengpa, hoping that Yang Tiandong would be given a good background in his next life. No matter what, he was his first disciple. Yang Tiandong returned to the queue in a daze. He sadly discovered that he couldn't return to his original position. He had to start from the end. Yang Tiandong looked up. Countless ghosts were queuing up, looking so lonely. He suddenly regretted it. He had stayed on the Cultivate diligently become Immortal Mountain. Unfortunately, there were no IFS, and the next life, he might very well become immortal, and his master would lead the other disciples to continue their cultivation path. The more Yang Tiandong thought about it, the more his heart ached. He could only blame himself. He couldn't hate anyone. After returning to the connate cave abode, Hanju began to deduce the mortal demon who had killed Yang Tiandong. As he was about to become an immortal emperor, he had a certain understanding of karma. If he followed Yang Tiandong's deduction, it was very easy for him to deduce that demon. It was a demon at the Tribulation Transcendence realm. It hid in the mountains and forests to cultivate. There was no second demon within 100 miles. It seemed very solitary. It was probably a cultivator like Hanju, but he got pestered by Yang Tiandong. Hanju didn't seek revenge. Yang Tiandong deserved it. It was just nice to let Yang Tiandong reincarnate and reroll his potential. The connate providence of a descendant of a mortal world demon saint was really insufficient. He had already fallen behind. The potential in the next life was bad too. He would continue to reincarnate. Hanju stopped thinking and continued to comprehend the great Tao of life and death. Under the Fusang tree, everyone was cultivating diligently and rarely chatted. Hanju didn't spread the news of Yang Tiandong's death. As his comprehension of the great Tao of life and death deepened, he discovered that his stellar primordial body was beginning to exert some effect, and the depths of his soul, a sea of stars appeared. Countless stars shone brightly. Hanju connected the great Tao of life and death to these stars. The great Tao of life and death was stimulated and became stronger. Hanju realized that his consciousness had arrived in a vast universe. The dazzling stars made him absent-minded. He suddenly realized that he did not understand the stellar primordial body at all. He had been cultivating and had neglected his research on the physique. Hanju decided to focus on the stellar primordial body next. He had a bold thought. He created a universe, and the universe developed into the scale of the current myriad worlds. All the providence would gather on him. The providence of the immortal world and the myriad worlds gathered together. Wasn't that the heavenly Tao? Hanju was tempted. He suddenly recalled the legend of Pangu splitting the heavens. Could it be that after Pangu split the heavens, he did not sacrifice himself but transformed into the heavenly Tao and became an existence that even the immortals could not imagine? Hanju suppressed his excitement. This plan would take too long. The immortal world had existed for countless years. The amount of time needed might even exceed the concept of time itself. In a huge prison, Zhou Fan and Mo Fuzhou were meditating. Not only the two of them, but others had been defeated by Feng Liang and were imprisoned here. Dozens of cultivators were patrolling the dark prison entrance. The other prison also had many cultivators inside, all of them healing their injuries. Mo Fuzhou opened his eyes and said in a low voice, "Strange, don't you think that everything is very strange?" Zhou Fan opened his eyes and asked, "What do you mean? The Gu family left so many of us alive. Aren't they afraid of danger? We might be of use to them." "That's true." Mo Fuzhou frowned. How could the Gu family use them? So many people. Mo Fuzhou had a bad feeling. A person beside him sighed. Leaving so many people who came from various factions alive, it must be for the sacrifice. Don't you know that the Gu family has an ancestor? He almost stepped into the immortal emperor realm. Feng Liang is so powerful because of the ancestors' enlightenment. The others followed suit. Yes, it's very likely that they want to revive their ancestor. In that case, Feng Liang is just a pawn? Nonsense. Otherwise, would he end up in an unconscious state? Don't think that he's domineering. He's actually better off dead. It's said that the head of the Gu family wanted to marry his daughter to Feng Liang, but he rejected. That's why Feng Liang ended up like this. Isn't Feng Liang a heavenly general of the heavenly court? Why isn't anyone from the heavenly court here? The heavenly court is on good terms with the divine palace. Why would they offend the divine palace for an ordinary heavenly general? Sigh, all living beings are ants before the chess players. Zhou Fan and Mo Fuzhou looked at each other. Zhou Fan said in a low voice, "Do you think Han Ju will come?" Mo Fuzhou rolled his eyes and said, "Brother Han is still in the mortal world. How can he come?" Zhou Fan felt that it made sense. If he comes, the Gu family will definitely be wiped out. Zhou Fan teased at this point, he no longer doubted Han Ju's strength. He could only imagine it. Zhou Fan understood Han Ju. Although this fellow was cautious and didn't like to provoke trouble, whoever dared to provoke him would definitely suffer. Mo Fuzhou smiled and said, "Perhaps." He had a feeling that the Gu family was in trouble. 3 years later, Zhou Fan, Mo Fuzhou, and the other prisoners were injected with a special poison, causing their dermic powers to collapse and for them to no longer be able to circulate their energy. After that, they were escorted out of the dungeon. An hour later, they were sent to a huge building at the top of a mountain. This was the place where Feng Liang had been enlightened. Everyone was nervous. The Gu family's master sat in the pavilion with Feng Liang behind him. Feng Liang was expressionless. He wore a Taoist robe covered in various runes and patterns. He looked very strange. The Gu family master waved his hand. The Gu family cultivators around the altar took a step forward and started casting their spells. Zhou Fan frowned. "It's about to begin?" Mo Fuzhou didn't reply. Instead, he circulated his energy with all his might. However, no matter what, he couldn't produce any dermic powers. The other prisoners fell into a panic. Many even started cursing the Gu family. A woman appeared beside the Gu family's master. Her name was Gu Xian. She turned to look at Feng Liang and asked, "Father, can you really save Feng Liang by doing this?" "Of course. The reason why he's in a daze is that he can't withstand the ancestors' cultivation. By returning the cultivation, he will be able to recover," the Gu family head replied as he stared at the array formation on the altar below. The ancestral recovery array had been activated. Chapter 240 Terrifying Ancestor. The Gu family head stood up and walked out of the pavilion. He came to the railing and looked down at the ancestral recovery array. The 99 Gu family cultivators used their dermic powers to activate the array formation. A huge purple barrier covered the altar. Rolling thunderclouds condensed above the purple barrier and quickly expanded, spreading to all directions. Boom, deafening thunder rumbled. The Gu family head's eyes burned with passion. "Ancestor, your descendant is about to revive you. Soon." He roared in his heart, extremely excited. He raised his hand and waved. Feng Liang immediately flew past him and into the air, walking towards the top of the ancestral recovery array. Countless bolts of lightning interwove on Feng Liang's body, but he did not frown. A terrifying pressure filled the world. The Gu family really wants to revive their ancestor? Zhou Fan widened his eyes. He had been resurrected several times, but he had relied on himself. Had the Gu family gone mad? Mo Fuzhou gritted his teeth and cursed. "Damn it. What poison is this? It can't be dispelled at all." At this rate, before Feng Liang died, they would be sacrificed first. The others were also extremely terrified. Some people wanted to forcefully rush out of the ancestral recovery array, but they were jolted back. Swish, a sonic boom tore through the air. A long halberd descended from the sky and directly broke through the ancestral recovery array. The tip of the halberd stabbed into the altar, causing cracks to appear on its surface. Everyone turned to look. This long halberd was silver-white in color. The blade of the halberd was like a crescent moon, shining brightly. A silver dragon seemed to be wrapped between the halberd blade and spear shaft, looking mighty and domineering. "Who dares to hurt my junior brother?" A domineering shout resounded through the world, causing everyone to look up. Wearing silver armor, Morong Chi stepped on a qilin and attacked. Divine light flashed behind him and pierced through the thundercloud. The Gu family head frowned and thought to himself, "Heavenly General? What does the Heavenly Court mean by this?" He immediately waved his hand, gesturing for the Gu family cultivators to attack. In an instant, hundreds of Gu family cultivators soared into the sky and attacked Morong Chi. Morong Chi raised his hand and waved. causing the silver dragon halberd to quickly fly back into his hand. He looked at Feng Liang and discovered that his junior brother was like a walking corpse. He was immediately furious and his eyes turned red. Inside the connate cave abode Hanju was cultivating. All these years, he had been studying the stellar primordial body. The dermic powers in his body had been increasing. He discovered that every star in his body could contain dermic powers, and the quantity was not small. The billions of stars filled with dermic powers were activated in battle. It would be an explosive force that could destroy the world. Just thinking about it made Hanju excited. In addition, he felt that the stellar primordial body might contain even stronger secrets. At this moment, a black vortex suddenly appeared behind Hanju. He felt the summoning of the invocation technique. What happened? Hanju frowned. Who was using the invocation technique? Hanju hesitated for a moment but still stood up and said, "I'll be back soon." He turned around and stepped into the black vortex. At the same time, dust filled the Gu family's mountain. On the altar, Feng Liang collapsed in the ruins. Morong Qi and Gu Xian knelt beside him. Many prisoners and corpses were lying around. A black vortex floated above Feng Liang's head. Morong Qi looked at it, feeling uneasy. Was the mystical power taught by Grandmaster useful? Why didn't I pay the price for using it? Back then, when Hanju taught him the invocation technique, he had mentioned a terrifying price. Morong Qi thought that he would have to sell his soul. Unexpectedly, nothing happened. Most importantly, he didn't reverse the situation. Morong Qi looked up. A fierce battle in the sky shook the world. The Gu family's ancestor had already been revived. Although he had only regained his soul, his aura was still very powerful. The person fighting him was a tiger-headed greater demon. This great demon wore thorny armor and had a demonic aura. He held a bone truncheon in his hand and attacked with all his might. With his great powers, he managed to restrain the Gu family's ancestor. However, it was only a distraction. The Gu family ancestor's aura became stronger and stronger as time passed. At this rate, the demon would definitely lose. Damn it, even a late-stage Grand Unity Golden Immortal can't suppress him? Is this fellow about to step into the Immortal Emperor realm? Morong Qi gritted his teeth. This greater demon was his subordinate back then, the Demon Bone Tiger. It was one of the 72 generals under him. Didn't expect that it was no match for the newly resurrected Gu family ancestor. If I had the cultivation level of my previous life, Morong Qi thought indignantly. He couldn't help but look at the black vortex. At this moment, he saw a figure walk out of the black vortex. Morong Qi's eyes widened. Grandmaster, why is Grandmaster here? It wasn't that Morong Qi didn't think that this was a summoning technique, but he didn't expect Hanju to come. He knew Hanju's personality best. The Heavenly Court invited Hanju, but he didn't go. But to save them, Hanju walked out of the black vortex and saw Feng Liang lying on the ground. He couldn't help but frown and ask in a low voice, "Who did this?" Seeing Hanju appear, Zhou Fan and Mo Fuzhou widened their eyes in shock. Why was he here? Many thoughts flashed through Morong Qi's mind. Then, he pointed at the Gu family's ancestor and said, "It's him. He stole junior brother's cultivation. The tiger demon fighting him is my subordinate." Hanju looked at the Gu family's ancestor, perfected Grand Unity Golden Immortal Realm. No wonder he could force his two precious grand disciples to such a state. Hanju raised his right hand and directly used the Heaven-Earth Mystic Yellow World-Piercing Sword Finger. Without another word, he used his full power, fighting the Demon Bone Tiger. The Gu family's ancestor subconsciously turned his head and saw Hanju's sword chi. The sword chi was extremely fast, faster than lightning. It was difficult to follow with the naked eye. It directly drowned the Gu family's ancestor and pierced through the thundercloud. It was like shooting through the sky. The Demon Bone Tiger was almost frightened to death. When Hanju's sword chi swept past him, he felt the aura of death. Emperor Realm mystical power. Was it an immortal emperor? The Demon Bone Tiger turned around and saw Morong Qi kneeling down to Hanju. This was only a difference in perspective. Morong Qi had exhausted all his dermic powers and was kneeling beside Feng Liang to take care of him. Hanju floated above Feng Liang and looked down from the sky as if Morong Qi was kneeling to him. What a handsome man. Could this be like what Big Brother had said? After Hanju felt the aura of the Gu family's ancestor completely disappear, he turned around and walked back to the black vortex, saying, "Bring your junior brother back. Be careful when you go out in the future." Hanju quickly disappeared into the black vortex. The world fell silent. Everyone who was still alive was stunned. Too fast. It was so fast that no one could react. Before they could figure out what was going on, the Gu family's ancestor was gone. Ancestor. A shrill cry sounded. The Gu family head knelt on the ruins of the pavilion in pain. He held his head with both hands and almost went mad. He's gone just like that? Zhou Fan muttered to himself in disbelief. He knew that Hanju was very strong, but unexpectedly, this was too ridiculous. The Gu family's ancestor was so powerful that he could destroy the world. He was stronger than any mighty figure he had ever seen, but Hanju killed him with a single finger. Morong Chi suddenly shouted, "Little Seven, what are you waiting for? Kill them. Leave no one from the Gu family alive. All of them must die." The demon bone tiger came back to its senses and revealed a sinister smile.